David woke up to the soft hum of the city outside his small apartment. The sunlight peeked through the thin curtains, casting warm streaks on the wooden floor. He rubbed his eyes and stretched, feeling the familiar ache in his shoulders from yesterday's long day at work. Being a single father was not easy, but he loved his son more than anything. His thoughts immediately went to the morning routine, getting breakfast ready, making sure his son was dressed for school, and getting himself out the door on time. He went to the kitchen, his movements slow but steady, opening the fridge to grab some eggs and bread. He liked to make simple breakfasts, things that were filling but easy to prepare in the rush of the morning. As the smell of toasted bread filled the small kitchen, he heard his son's footsteps coming down the stairs. A small smile appeared on David's face as he saw the excitement in his son's eyes. Even in the quiet struggle of everyday life, these small moments were precious. His son sat at the tiny table, rubbing his eyes and trying to look awake. David poured some orange juice into a glass and handed it over. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the kind of comfortable silence that only existed between people who were deeply familiar with each other. David glanced at the clock and realized it was almost time to leave. He quickly packed his son's bag, making sure homework and lunch were tucked inside, and reminded him to take his jacket since the weather was cool that morning. They stepped outside, the city alive with the sounds of cars and people heading to work or school. David held his son's hand tightly as they walked toward the bus stop. He liked to walk with him in the morning whenever he could, feeling a sense of connection and responsibility. The streets were busy, but they found a small rhythm in navigating through the crowd. David's mind wandered to the day ahead. There were meetings at work he had to attend, a report to finish, and the constant worry about making ends meet. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the simple joy of being with his son. At the bus stop, David noticed a few familiar faces, neighbors who were also on their way to work or school. They exchanged polite nods and small talk about the weather and their mornings. It was routine, almost mechanical, but comforting in its way. David looked at his son, who was fidgeting with his backpack straps, clearly excited to start the day. He smiled and ruffled his hair, a small gesture that made his son laugh. The bus approached, and David helped his son climb aboard safely. He waved as the bus pulled away, feeling a mix of pride and worry. Letting go, even for a short while, was never easy. He turned to wait for his own bus, glancing at the streets and the people passing by. The morning sun was warming the pavement, and the city seemed to stretch out endlessly before him. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the stress that always seemed to linger. As he waited, David noticed a few other commuters chatting quietly, some lost in their phones, others reading newspapers. He liked to observe people sometimes, thinking about the lives that crossed paths with his own, even if only for a few moments. Life had a strange way of connecting people, and he often wondered about the stories behind each face. Today, however, he was mostly focused on his own thoughts, the rhythm of his routine, and the small details that made his mornings familiar. He noticed a woman in a hurry, juggling coffee and a briefcase, and a man reading a thick book, completely absorbed in the story. The sounds of the city, the distant honk of a car, the murmur of conversations, the rumble of the approaching bus, created a background that was almost soothing in its consistency. David liked these small details, the way they made the city feel alive and yet predictable. He felt a sense of calm, even as the responsibilities of the day loomed ahead. As he adjusted the strap of his bag and checked the time, he realized he had a few minutes before his bus arrived. He leaned against the bus stop pole, letting his thoughts drift. He thought about his son's upcoming school projects, about work deadlines, and about the small victories and challenges that made each day unique. Life had its ups and downs, but he had learned to navigate them one step at a time. He found comfort in routine, in the predictable rhythm of mornings like this, where everything seemed manageable and ordinary. David noticed a little girl across the street, standing near the edge of the sidewalk. At first, he thought she was waiting for someone, maybe a parent or guardian, but something about her caught his attention. She seemed unsure, fidgeting with her hands and looking around nervously. Her small frame and hesitant movements made him pause. He squinted slightly, trying to get a better look. There was a hint of distress in her eyes, a subtle unease that immediately drew his concern. He watched as she took a few uncertain steps forward and then froze, glancing around as if searching for someone. David felt a pang in his chest. Something was not right. The little girl was alone. and the morning bustle of the city seemed to dwarf her small presence. His instincts kicked in and he started moving closer, his steps quick but careful. He wanted to make sure she was safe, to understand what was happening before taking any action. As he approached, he noticed the girl's clothes were slightly disheveled, her small backpack slung awkwardly over one shoulder. Her shoes looked worn and her hands were a little dirty. She seemed to shrink in on herself as he got closer, her eyes widening in a mix of fear and uncertainty. David crouched down slightly to meet her gaze, offering a warm, reassuring smile. He spoke softly, asking if she was okay. The girl hesitated, looking around as if unsure whether she could trust him. David's heart tightened. He could see the fear in her eyes, a fear that no child should have to feel alone in a busy city. He repeated his question gently, letting her know he meant no harm. Slowly, she whispered that she was lost, that she didn't know where her parents were. David nodded, his mind already working to figure out what to do. He crouched a little closer, keeping his tone calm and comforting. He wanted her to feel safe, to know that someone was there to help. He asked her name and she whispered almost shyly that it was Lily. It was a small word, but it carried a world of vulnerability. David reached out his hand slowly, offering it to her. She looked at it for a moment, then took it tentatively. The simple act of holding her hand seemed to bridge the gap between fear and trust. David felt a surge of protectiveness. He knew he had to stay calm, to be the steady presence she needed. He looked around the bus stop, noticing that most people were absorbed in their own routines, unaware of the small crisis unfolding nearby. It was a stark reminder of how easy it was for a child to go unnoticed in the rush of everyday life. He asked Lily if she remembered where she had last seen her parents. She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. David patted her shoulder gently, whispering that everything would be okay, that they would find her family. He could feel her trembling slightly, and he wrapped his jacket around her shoulders to offer warmth and comfort. The city seemed to fade for a moment, leaving just the two of them in this quiet, urgent moment. David's thoughts raced. He knew he needed to get help quickly, but he also wanted to keep Lily calm and safe. He glanced at his phone, dialing the local authorities while keeping one eye on her. He spoke calmly, explaining the situation and providing a description of Lily and her location. He listened carefully to the instructions, nodding even though she couldn't see him. Every word was measured, every action deliberate, as he tried to maintain a sense of security for her. As they waited, David talked to Lily about small things to distract her from fear. He asked about her favorite colors, what games she liked, and even shared a funny story about his own son. Slowly, she began to relax, her small hand gripping his a little less tightly. David felt a sense of relief, knowing that his calm presence was helping her navigate this frightening situation. The bond between them, formed in these tense moments, was unspoken but profound. Minutes passed, though it felt longer in the quiet tension. David kept talking to Lily, keeping her focused on him rather than the uncertainty around them. He made small jokes, encouraged her to take deep breaths, and reminded her that help was on the way. The bus stop, once a place of routine and ordinary life, had become the center of a small but deeply emotional world. David's mind remained alert, scanning the area for any signs of danger or confusion, ready to act if needed. Though the morning had started as any other, it had transformed into a test of patience, compassion, and quick thinking. David realized how fragile moments could be, how quickly life could shift from ordinary to critical. Yet in this moment, he also felt the strength of human connection, the ability to provide comfort and safety to someone in need. It was a reminder of the small yet profound impact one person could have in the life of another. Even in the midst of an ordinary city morning, David squeezed Lily's hand gently, smiling down at her, trying to convey the message that she was not alone. The sound of approaching sirens or footsteps would soon bring assistance, but for now it was just the two of them, navigating a moment that neither would forget. And as he stood there, holding her hand and keeping her close, he felt a quiet sense of purpose, a reaffirmation of the values that had guided him through the challenges of being a single father. Life was unpredictable, yes, but in this moment he could make a difference, and that mattered more than anything. David felt a knot in his stomach as he crouched down next to Lily, her small hand trembling in his. The world around them continued with its usual morning chaos, but for David, everything had narrowed down to this little girl and her fear. He adjusted his jacket around her shoulders, trying to make her feel protected. Her eyes darted nervously around the busy street, and David realized how overwhelming the city must have felt to someone so small and alone. He spoke softly, asking if she could remember anything, her home, her parents, anything at all. Lily shook her head, her lips quivering as tears ran down her cheeks. David wiped them away gently, telling her it was okay to cry, that being scared was normal. He could feel her trust slowly growing little by little as she leaned slightly closer to him. He knew this moment would stay with him forever, a stark reminder of how vulnerable children could be in a world that often moved too fast. David looked around, scanning the street for any sign of someone who might be looking for her. There were people walking by, absorbed in their own routines, unaware of the small crisis unfolding at the curb. The thought made his heart tighten. It wasn't just the fear in her eyes. It was the idea that someone could be lost and invisible to the world for even a few moments. He held her hand a little tighter and spoke in a calm, steady voice, telling her help would come soon. He reached for his phone and dialed the local authorities, explaining the situation. The voice on the other end asked for details, her approximate age, description, location, and what had happened so far. David provided each detail carefully, making sure to emphasize that she was frightened but unharmed. While speaking, he kept one eye on Lily, smiling and nodding to reassure her. She clung to his hand, still hesitant but slowly calming down with each word of comfort he offered. While on the phone, David began to think of other ways to ensure her safety. The area around the bus stop was busy, but there were small alleyways and side streets nearby. He mentally mapped out the surroundings, considering what might happen if she became scared again or tried to wander off. He told Lily that he would not leave her side, that they would wait together until someone came to help. His voice was calm, but inside a mixture of concern and urgency surged. As they waited, David tried to engage her in conversation, knowing that distraction could help ease her fear. He asked her about simple things like her favorite colors, the games she liked to play, and if she had a pet at home. Slowly, Lily began to relax, offering quiet answers and glancing at him with a tentative trust. David smiled, encouraging her to talk more, even as he kept a vigilant eye on the street. He noticed how small gestures like a kind word or a gentle touch could have such a profound effect on a child who felt lost and alone. He began telling her a story about his own son, describing a silly morning when his son had worn mismatched shoes to school and had been too embarrassed to tell anyone. Lily's lips curled into a small smile, her fear temporarily forgotten. David noticed how quickly children could oscillate between fear and comfort, and he wanted to make sure this moment of relief lasted as long as possible. The bond they were forming in these tense moments was quiet but powerful, a connection born out of empathy and human instinct. Minutes stretched on, but David remained calm. He kept his voice steady, asking gentle questions about what she liked to do after school, her favorite food, and whether she had friends she enjoyed playing with. Each question was met with cautious answers, and with each response, David felt a small relief. He realized that even though the situation was frightening, these conversations were helping Lily feel more secure. She clung to him less tightly now, occasionally looking around with curiosity instead of fear. David also noticed the small details about her hair falling into her eyes, the slight dirt on her knees, the tiny scuff on her shoe. He thought about how vulnerable children could be, how quickly they could become lost or overwhelmed. The city was bustling, yet here was a small girl who felt completely alone. It struck him deeply, reinforcing the importance of vigilance and compassion. He knew that moments like these required patience, kindness, and a clear mind. He glanced up and saw the approaching flash of a patrol car in the distance. Relief washed over him, but he remained calm. He wanted Lily to feel safe and reassured, not to sense the urgency or worry in his heart. He continued to talk to her about small, pleasant things, about animals, toys, and little adventures she had experienced. Each word seemed to ease her fear, bringing a sense of normalcy to a situation that was anything but ordinary. As the police car drew nearer, David prepared to explain everything to the officers. He knew that once they arrived, his role would shift from protector to observer. Ensuring Lily's transition to safety was smooth. He wanted to stay with her as long as possible, to be a steady presence until help fully arrived. The thought made him reflect on his own responsibilities as a parent and a human being. Protecting someone vulnerable, even a stranger, was both a duty and a privilege. Finally, the officers arrived and began to approach. David remained with Lily, crouching down and keeping her close. He introduced her to the officers, speaking gently to explain her name, age, and what had happened. Lily looked at the officers with cautious curiosity, but she stayed close to David, reassured by his presence. The transition was delicate, and David wanted to make sure she felt safe at every step. The officers spoke to Lily in soft, friendly tones, asking her simple questions and confirming her details. David watched carefully, noting how important tone and demeanor were in comforting a frightened child. He offered quiet encouragement, reminding her that she was safe and that her family would be found. He felt a swell of gratitude for the officers, knowing that their intervention was crucial in ensuring Lily's safety and bringing the situation to a proper resolution. As the officers prepared to take Lily to the station, briefly for verification and contact with her parents, David gently reminded her to stay calm. He promised that everything would be okay and that she would soon be back with her family. Lily nodded, still holding his hand for reassurance. The bond they had formed in these tense, frightening moments was clear, even in her small gestures of trust and reliance. David stepped back, watching as the officers led Lily to their vehicle. Relief and a quiet sense of satisfaction washed over him. The crisis had been intense, but he had been able to provide comfort, security, and guidance in a moment when she needed it most. He felt a deep connection to her, a reminder of how powerful compassion and human care could be, even in brief encounters. As the patrol car drove away with Lily, David took a deep breath and allowed himself to reflect on the morning. He thought about the fragility of life, the importance of paying attention, and the small acts of kindness that could change someone's day, or even their life. He knew that this moment would stay with him forever, a vivid memory of the day he encountered a frightened little girl and had the chance to make a difference. He checked his phone one last time to ensure everything was settled, then resumed his routine, though with a lingering sense of emotional weight. The city continued to buzz around him, unaware of the small, intense drama that had unfolded at the bus stop. David walked toward his own bus, his thoughts drifting between the morning's events and the life waiting for him at home. The encounter had been brief but transformative, leaving him with a renewed sense of empathy and awareness. Even as he boarded his bus and settled into a seat, he could still picture Lily's small, frightened eyes and the way she had slowly begun to trust him. He realized that moments of fear and uncertainty could be softened by patience, kindness, and human connection. And in that realization, he found a quiet hope, not just for Lily, but for all the children in the world who might find themselves alone, scared, and in need of someone to care. The morning had begun like any other, but it had become a profound reminder of the difference one person could make in the life of another. David couldn't stop thinking about Lily as he made his way to work. The city had returned to its usual rhythm, but he felt a lingering tension in his chest. The memory of her small, frightened eyes stayed with him, reminding him of how vulnerable children could be. Even though the authorities had taken over, he felt a continued responsibility for her well-being, as if his connection with her extended beyond that brief encounter at the bus stop. Throughout the morning, David found it difficult to focus on work. Every few minutes he would glance at his phone, hoping for any news about Lily and her parents. He imagined her sitting safely somewhere, feeling comforted by the officers, and hoped that soon she would be back with her family. The thought of her alone, even for a moment, weighed heavily on him. He had always known that parenting was about protecting and guiding, but this experience reminded him that compassion extended beyond the walls of his own home. At the office, his colleagues noticed that he was quieter than usual. They asked if everything was okay, and he simply nodded, giving vague responses. He didn't feel like talking much. His mind was elsewhere. The images of the little girl's fear and trust were vivid in his mind, shaping every thought and movement. It was a strange feeling, knowing that he had impacted someone's life so deeply in such a short span of time. He reflected on how brief encounters could carry profound significance, how the smallest acts of kindness could leave lasting impressions. David spent the day thinking about the moments at the bus stop. He replayed the encounter in his mind, noting the way Lily had clung to his hand, the hesitant way she had responded, and the trust she had slowly placed in him. He considered how small gestures, a smile, a gentle word, or a reassuring touch, could transform fear into comfort. He realized that these gestures required patience and attention, qualities that often went unnoticed in the rush of everyday life. During his lunch break, he decided to step outside for some fresh air. He walked down familiar streets, noticing the same faces, the same routines, and yet everything felt different. The city seemed a little sharper, a little more alive as he considered the many lives intersecting with his own in small, meaningful ways. He thought about the countless children who might find themselves in situations like Lily's, vulnerable and uncertain, hoping that someone would step in to offer care and safety. David imagined Lily's parents searching desperately, calling out her name and feeling panic with every passing minute. The thought tightened his chest, but it also strengthened his resolve to remember the importance of empathy and vigilance. He realized that life was unpredictable, and the safety of the most vulnerable often depended on the attentiveness and compassion of those around them. It was a lesson he carried with him, a quiet reminder of the responsibility each person held in the world. Back at his desk, David's mind wandered to his own son. He thought about how precious those small moments of safety and comfort were. He felt gratitude for the time he had with his child, for the routines they shared, and for the ability to provide a sense of security. The morning had reminded him that parenting extended beyond providing food and shelter. It was about presence, attention, and love. He thought about how similar these principles were in the broader world, where children like Lily needed adults to notice, to care, and to act. As the workday dragged on, David's thoughts returned again and again to the bus stop. He imagined the officers patiently guiding Lily, speaking to her in gentle tones and slowly helping her feel safe. He pictured her small hand in theirs, the initial hesitation giving way to tentative trust. He felt relief that she had been found, but he also felt a lingering responsibility, a quiet hope that she would carry this experience with a sense of safety rather than fear. When the afternoon arrived, David made a decision to stop by the bus stop on his way home. Even though the authorities had already handled the situation, he wanted to see the place where the events had unfolded, to remember the small details that had made such a strong impression on him. As he approached, he noticed the same familiar faces, people going about their routines, unaware of the brief drama that had taken place there. He felt a mixture of calm and reflection, understanding that life often moved on quickly, but that moments of human connection could linger. David paused at the bus stop, looking around at the pavement, the nearby street, and the small shops that framed the scene. He imagined Lily's small figure sitting on the curb, her eyes wide with fear, and he recalled the exact words he had spoken to reassure her. The memory was vivid, almost like a photograph capturing both the vulnerability and resilience of a child in an uncertain world. He felt gratitude for having been able to provide comfort and safety, even in a fleeting moment. As he continued home, David thought about the lessons he had learned. He considered the importance of presence, of noticing when someone was in need, and of acting with empathy. He reflected on the idea that life often presented unexpected challenges, and that the response to those challenges could define the course of someone's day, or even their life. The morning had been a test of patience, compassion, and quick thinking, and David had emerged from it with a deeper understanding of human connection. By the time he reached his apartment, David was filled with a sense of quiet resolve. He entered his home and was greeted by his son, who ran to him with a wide smile. The normalcy of this scene contrasted sharply with the morning's intensity, but it also reinforced the importance of presence and care in everyday life. David hugged his son tightly, feeling a renewed sense of appreciation for the small, ordinary moments that formed the foundation of love and trust. He settled in for the evening, reflecting on the day's events and the emotional journey he had experienced. The encounter with Lily had been brief, but it had left an indelible mark on him. He realized that life was filled with these moments where attentiveness, kindness, and courage could make a profound difference. And while he could not control every outcome, he could continue to act with compassion, knowing that even small gestures could have a lasting impact. David sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker as dusk settled in. He thought about Lily, hoping that she had found comfort and that her parents were safely reunited with her. He held on to the memory of her small hand in his, the tentative trust she had placed in him, and the quiet resilience she had shown. These thoughts reminded him of the enduring strength of the human spirit, and the power of empathy to bridge moments of fear and uncertainty. He made a mental note to carry this experience with him, to remain vigilant and compassionate in his interactions with others, and to continue being a source of comfort and guidance for his son. The day had been a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of human connection, and David knew that these lessons would stay with him forever, shaping the way he navigated the world around him. The next morning, David woke with a heavy sense of anticipation. The memory of Lily stayed fresh in his mind, and he felt a deep urge to make sure she had been reunited safely with her family. His morning routine was much the same as usual, preparing breakfast, helping his son get ready, and stepping out into the city streets. But there was an underlying tension he could not shake. He wanted to check on the place where he had met Lily, to see if anything had changed, to feel reassured that the morning's events had resolved well. He walked toward the bus stop, the city alive with its usual sounds of chatter, engines, and footsteps. The scene seemed ordinary, almost mundane, but for David it carried the weight of the previous day's events. He scanned the area carefully, his eyes searching for anything that might hint at Lily's parents or even Lily herself. It was a strange feeling, being both a part of the city's routine and yet hyper-aware of the small drama that had unfolded in its midst. As he approached, he noticed a group of people gathered nearby, speaking quietly. Among them he saw a woman kneeling and holding a small child close. His heart leapt. Could it be Lily? He moved closer, careful not to rush or alarm them. As he got nearer, he recognized her immediately. Her small stature, the way she clung to the woman, her timid glance toward him. Relief flooded through David. She was safe. She was with someone who clearly loved her. Lily's eyes met his for a brief moment, and she gave a shy smile. David waved softly, his chest tightening with emotion. The woman looked up and noticed him, nodding in acknowledgement. It was a quiet, wordless exchange, a mutual understanding of the brief yet intense connection that had occurred yesterday. David felt a profound sense of peace knowing that the little girl he had comforted was now secure. He watched for a few more moments, seeing Lily's parents embrace her tightly, their relief evident in every gesture. It was a touching scene, one that reminded him of the fragility and resilience of life. He thought about the fear that Lily must have felt, and the overwhelming relief she and her parents now shared. It reinforced his belief in the importance of vigilance and empathy, in the quiet ways people could impact one another's lives. David lingered near the bus stop, reflecting on the rapid shift from fear to safety, from uncertainty to reassurance. He considered how fragile these moments were, how quickly they could change, and how much of a difference one person could make. His own experience with Lily had shown him that even small gestures, offering comfort, a hand to hold, a reassuring word, could leave a lasting impact. He felt gratitude for having been in the right place at the right time, for having been able to provide a sense of security when it mattered most. As he continued his walk, David's thoughts drifted back to his son. He realized that these experiences were reminders of the lessons he wanted to impart to his child. The importance of noticing others, the responsibility to act with kindness, and the power of empathy. He hoped that by modeling compassion and attentiveness, he could help his son grow into someone who valued human connection and took action when someone needed help. Throughout the day, David found himself replaying the moments at the bus stop in his mind. He remembered Lily's hesitant trust, the relief that had washed over her as he reassured her, and the way the authorities had taken over to ensure her safety. Each detail felt significant, a reminder that even brief encounters could carry immense weight. He considered how easy it was for children to become overlooked in a busy world, and how critical it was for adults to remain aware and proactive. During his lunch break, David stepped outside again, feeling the pull of reflection. He wandered the familiar streets, observing the people around him, imagining the countless small stories that unfolded in parallel with his own life. He thought about the parents of children who might find themselves in moments of fear, hoping that someone like him would be there to offer comfort and guidance. The thought filled him with both concern and determination, reinforcing his commitment to empathy and attentiveness. David realized that this experience had changed him, even subtly. It had heightened his awareness, deepened his understanding of human vulnerability, and strengthened his sense of responsibility. He knew that life often presented unexpected challenges, and that the response to those challenges could define the course of someone's day, or even their life. The morning with Lily had been a vivid demonstration of this principle, a lesson in compassion and the power of human presence. As he returned to work, he found that he could focus more easily, but his mind remained intertwined with the events of the morning. He reflected on the officers who had intervened, their calm and professional demeanor helping to bring a swift resolution. He felt grateful for their presence, recognizing that teamwork and coordinated action were essential in ensuring safety and comfort for those in need. The experience reinforced his belief in the collective responsibility of a community to look out for one another. When the workday ended, David made his way home, still carrying the emotional weight of the morning. He thought about the importance of debriefing with himself, of processing experiences fully so that they could inform future actions. He realized that encounters like these required reflection, not just action, and that understanding the emotional impact of such events was a crucial part of personal growth. At home, he greeted his son with warmth and attention, recognizing that his child, too, would benefit from understanding the value of empathy and vigilance. He recounted parts of the day carefully, focusing on the lessons and emotions rather than the stressful moments. His son listened wide-eyed and curious, learning from the lived example of his father. The narrative was simple, but it conveyed the importance of compassion, courage, and attentiveness in everyday life. As night fell, David sat quietly in the living room, reflecting on the events that had unfolded over the past 2 days. He considered the fleeting nature of moments, the intensity of human emotions, and the enduring impact of small acts of kindness. The encounter with Lily had been brief, yet it had left a profound impression, reminding him of the delicate balance between fear and safety, uncertainty and reassurance. He thought about the larger implications, how easily life could shift, how important it was to remain present and attentive, and how one person's actions could ripple outward, affecting others in ways that were often invisible but deeply meaningful. The experience strengthened his resolve to continue living with awareness, compassion, and care, both for his own family and for those who might cross his path unexpectedly. David realized that the city around him, bustling and busy, was filled with countless small dramas and quiet triumphs. Each person carried their own fears, hopes, and responsibilities, and each encounter had the potential to shape lives in significant ways. The morning with Lily had been a powerful reminder of this truth, reinforcing the value of empathy, attentiveness, and the human connection that could bridge fear and comfort. Before going to bed, David reflected on the lessons he wanted to carry forward. He thought about vigilance, compassion, and the importance of being present in the lives of those who needed support. He considered how these principles applied not only to his own parenting, but also to the broader community around him. The events of the past 2 days had left an indelible mark, shaping his perspective and deepening his understanding of the impact one person could have on another's life. As he closed his eyes, he felt a sense of calm and purpose. The morning's intensity had given way to reflection and understanding, and he knew that he would carry these lessons with him. He drifted off to sleep, holding on to the hope that Lily was safe, happy, and reassured by the love of her family. And in that hope, he found a quiet affirmation of the power of empathy, presence, and the small but meaningful ways in which one person could make a difference in the life of another. The next morning, David woke up with a quiet sense of anticipation. Even though Lily had been reunited with her parents, he felt the pull of reflection, knowing that some moments in life left an imprint that never faded. He moved through his usual morning routine with his son, but his mind lingered on the events that had unfolded at the bus stop. The memory of the little girl's wide, uncertain eyes and the trust she had placed in him still resonated deeply. He prepared breakfast with deliberate care, savoring the small, simple moments. The smell of eggs and toast, the laughter of his son, and the familiar hum of the city outside created a comforting backdrop. Yet, beneath the ordinary rhythm of his morning, David felt a sense of responsibility that extended beyond his own household. He thought about the countless other children navigating the city streets, some confident and secure, others vulnerable and uncertain. He realized that life often presented fleeting moments that required attention, empathy, and quick action. After dropping his son at school, David walked to the bus stop, feeling a need to revisit the scene, to allow himself to process and fully understand the impact of his encounter with Lily. The street was quiet, filled with the usual early morning energy, but there was a sense of stillness that David appreciated. He paused for a moment, reflecting on how quickly fear could transform into relief, and how fragile yet resilient children could be in moments of uncertainty. He remembered the way Lily had clung to his hand, the trembling that ran through her small body, and the gradual trust she had placed in him. Each detail, though simple, carried profound significance. David realized that human connection often depended on such small, deliberate gestures, a comforting word, a gentle touch, a patient presence. In the brief encounter at the bus stop, he had seen firsthand the transformative power of these actions. As he waited for his own bus, David observed the people around him. Some were absorbed in their phones, others chatted quietly, and a few simply stared into the distance, lost in thought. He thought about the invisible lives intersecting with his own, each carrying hopes, fears, and stories untold. The city, with its bustling streets and constant movement, was a web of human experiences, some ordinary and some profound. He felt a renewed sense of awareness, knowing that moments of crisis and connection could appear unexpectedly, demanding presence and compassion. David's thoughts drifted to Lily's parents. He imagined the relief and joy they must have felt upon finding her, the deep gratitude for the simple act of returning a child to safety. It reminded him of his own role as a parent, the constant vigilance required to protect and nurture. He realized that empathy and attentiveness extended beyond family, reaching into the lives of strangers in ways that could leave lasting impressions. The encounter had reinforced the importance of being alert, responsive, and compassionate in everyday life. On his way to work, David reflected on the lessons he wanted to carry forward. He thought about vigilance, patience, and the quiet courage required to intervene in moments of uncertainty. He considered the broader implications, the responsibility of a community to look out for its youngest and most vulnerable members, and the ways in which small acts of care could ripple outward, creating a network of trust and security. The bus stop incident had been a powerful illustration of these principles in action. During the day, David found himself thinking often about the fragility of human life and the importance of presence. Even as he completed routine tasks and interacted with colleagues, his mind returned to Lily and the emotions that had colored the brief encounter. He understood that such experiences could leave a deep imprint, shaping one's perspective and approach to the world. He felt gratitude for having been in the position to help, and a quiet humility for the trust the little girl had placed in him. At lunch, David stepped outside for a quiet walk, observing the city streets and the people passing by. He imagined the lives of other children, each navigating challenges and uncertainties, some with support and others alone. The thought strengthened his resolve to remain aware and empathetic, to act whenever he could provide safety or comfort. He understood that human connection was often forged in small, unexpected moments, and that these moments could have profound, lasting effects. After work, David returned to the bus stop once more, not out of necessity but for reflection. The street, bathed in the warm glow of the evening sun, seemed ordinary, yet it held deep significance for him. He recalled the moments of fear, the tentative trust, and the eventual relief when the authorities arrived. The memory served as a reminder of the delicate balance between vulnerability and security, and the power of human presence to tip that balance toward safety. As night fell, David settled into his apartment with his son. The evening was quiet, filled with laughter, stories, and small routines that reinforced the stability of home life. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm, David felt the lingering lessons of the day, the importance of vigilance, the impact of empathy, and the enduring significance of human connection. He shared stories with his son, focusing on the values of care, attentiveness, and courage, hoping to instill the same sense of responsibility and compassion that had guided him in his encounter with Lily. Before going to sleep, David reflected on the past week's events. He thought about the unexpected intensity of the morning at the bus stop, the fear in Lily's eyes, and the relief of her reunion with her family. He understood that life was unpredictable, filled with moments that required both immediate action and deep reflection. The experience had shaped his perspective, deepened his awareness and reinforced the importance of human connection in even the briefest of encounters. As he lay in bed, David felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. The memory of the morning, though intense, had been a testament to the resilience of children, the strength of human empathy, and the significance of small acts of kindness. He hoped that Lily would continue to grow with confidence and security, supported by her family and the kindness of those who had intervened. And in that hope, David found a profound affirmation of the value of presence, care, and the enduring impact of one person's actions on the life of another. With these reflections, he drifted into sleep, carrying with him the lessons of vigilance, empathy, and human connection. The city outside continued its rhythm, filled with countless untold stories. But David knew that in at least one instance, his presence had made a difference. And that knowledge, quiet yet powerful, filled him with a sense of purpose, reminding him that compassion and attentiveness were not just virtues. They were essential tools for navigating the world, protecting the vulnerable, and leaving a lasting impact through simple human actions.